الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين سيدنا مولانا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala يخلق ما يشاء ويختار. Allah ta'ala creates whatever He desires, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala from His creation, whatever Allah that has created, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala then accepts and chooses from them. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grants, for instance, from the various creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created insan, and from all the creation of Allah ta'ala, insan is the one that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has chosen for His ibadat. Allah ta'ala has chosen insan and jinn to do the ibadat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The purpose of insan is different to that of jinn. The other creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they also do the tasbih of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They also do the ibadat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but in a limited manner and limited form. Allah ta'ala has given the most intellect to insan from all His creation. So in this way Allah ta'ala has chosen insan. Then from the insan, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has chosen the Anbiya alayhimu salatu salam. And they are those who, not by choice, but by the choice of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, became prophets and they became messengers. So these were those who Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had chosen. And then from the Anbiya alayhimu salatu salam, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala chose various followers and various ummah for those. And then from the Anbiya alayhi salatu salam, Allah ta'ala created and sent Nabi Kareem sallallahu ta'ala sallam as Khatumun Nabeen, the final prophet. And the best of the ummah were those who are from the ummah of Nabi Kareem sallallahu ta'ala sallam. And then from mankind, from the ummah of Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi sallam, khairun nasi qarni, ثُمَّ الَّذِينَ يَلُونَهُمْ ثُمَّ الَّذِينَ يَلُونَهُمْ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accepted the Sahabah kiram radiyallahu ta'ala as the companions of Nabi Kareem sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wasallam. And why they were chosen is because they were the best to be the companions of Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam. When a person thinks to themselves that if only we were alive during the time of Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam, we could have seen Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam, we could have accompanied Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam, we could have been around during that time. But the reality is that we were not ready for that time, or we were not chosen by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to be from those who were the servants or the companions of Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam. The qurbani that they undertook, the mujahada that they had undertaken, and one of the biggest qurbani that they had undertaken or responsibility that they had taken is that when Nabi Kareem sallallahu ta'ala sallam on the occasion of Hajjatul Wida, when Nabi sallallahu ta'ala sallam had said to the Sahabah kiram radiyallahu ta'ala ala hal ballaghtu, they took the responsibility of giving testimony to it. And then Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam mentions فَلْيُبَلِّغُ الشَّاهِدُ الْغَائِبَ, that those who are present should now pass on whatever they have heard today. And because this was during the last of the demise of Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, it referred not to just that khutbah that Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam had given, but all the teachings of Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, that those who are hazir now, those who are present, should relay that and pass that on to others as well, to those who are not present today. If the Sahaba kiram radiyallahu ta'ala were lazy in this matter, if the Sahaba kiram radiyallahu ta'ala didn't take this seriously, then very little of what we have in the form of ilm would be with us now. That very little knowledge would have been passed on to us. And because of that, a lot of the other things would probably be concocted, things we just made up, things we would be guessing more than that which is authentic. The Sahabah Kiram radiallahu ta'ala then made it their mission. There were those of the companions who were very restrictive, you can say, very cautious they were in relaying something directly from Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam in order to safeguard themselves from being from those who relay something which may not be factual. And there were those Sahaba Kiram radiallahu ta'ala who look at it the other side, that this is a responsibility and duty that we need to undertake. So they fulfilled that responsibility and duty. And those Sahaba Kiram radiallahu ta'ala, for example, Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu ta'ala, who has narrated very few hadiths. Very few hadiths you hear narrated by Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu ta'ala. But then Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu ta'ala, by means of his own actions and his life, he has given us the lessons of the hadith of Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam. So those who did not narrate the hadith, or narrated very few hadiths, not that they did not pass on knowledge and people did not benefit from them, but it was a case of them through their actions, by means of their decisions, they passed on so much knowledge to the ummah. Hence in Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu ta'ala, he didn't mention so many ahadith, but the Sahaba Kiram radiallahu ta'ala already knew, and the Sahaba Kiram radiallahu ta'ala said already during the time of Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam that he is who alamu minna. He is, from us, he is the most knowledgeable, the most knowing. As when Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wasallam mentioned the hadith as well, that there is a person and he has been given what opportunity to choose between he's a traveler and he has the opportunity of going back to his home. So in this way a person has been given a choice either to live here in this world or choose the place of the hereafter. And he chooses the hereafter. Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wa sallam mentioning this, and Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu ta'ala was the only one from the gathering who began to weep. The other companions wondering that why is Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu ta'ala weeping on this for? Simple, a person has been given a choice of this world or the hereafter. So what's there to weep in that? But what they didn't realize is what Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu ta'ala had realized, what he had caught on to, and that is Nabi Kareem sallallahu ta'ala is indicating towards his demise. Then Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wasallam has now chosen the hereafter. That means that Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam will not live long with us. So Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu ta'ala was the one who had more knowledge than anybody else. Hence when he came for imamat as well, already during the time of Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam, there was Ubay bin Ka'b radiallahu ta'ala who was, as Abu Umar radiallahu anhu, aqra minna, the most knowledgeable with regards to qiraat was, and the qari of our time was Ubay bin Ka'b radiallahu ta'ala. But Nabi Kareem sallallahu ta'ala did not instruct him, Bilal radiallahu ta'ala, that tell Ubay bin Ka'b to do the imamat. But Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wasallam chose the one who is a'lam, who was Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu ta'ala, and the one who will then lead the ummah, not just in salat, but in every other matter of their lives after Nabi Kareem sallallahu ta'ala's demise. And the reason why the preference in salat for a'lam over aqra is because a qari who is a qari sahib, he's only going to read his qiraat when he's going to read his qiraat in just the qiyam position only. But if he is not a'lam, if he doesn't have knowledge, then he's not going to know the knowledge of salat in the various other arkan. And the one who is a'lam is going to be the one who knows what's happening throughout the salah. And if he is a'lam, then he's going to know as well that he may not be aqra, but he knows as well that he shouldn't be making those type of mistakes and errors in the qiraat that are going to lead towards the nullification of the salat. So he'll know that amount of masail pertaining to qiraat, although he may not be an expert in qiraat itself, but he'll know the masail with regards to qiraat at least. And then when he comes to the other masail, so masail And ilm is something that is needed throughout the salat. Qiraat is something which is only needed when in the qiyam position, that's all. So hence you would give preference as well to that person who is alam. And then if he's somebody who is alam and aqra as well, then nurun ala nur, all the better as well. This is a different matter. Well, for us it shows that how important it is that we should be reciting the Quran in a manner that our salat is correct, and also that we should be knowing the basic masail with regards to salat. And if you don't know these things, then what will happen is that a person will carry out certain things incorrectly. And a person who doesn't know should learn or should ask the learned people. Just the way we have Qurbani very soon. And these are those days that of the blessed days. And this is what I was coming to as well with regards to Allah Ta'ala choosing people. How Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala has chosen the Anbiya alayhi salatu wasalam, and then He has chosen the appropriate people to be the companions of Nabi Kareem sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wasallam. One of the days, something has been on my mind many times, and something came back on my mind a couple of days ago. And that is that there are certain Sahabah Kiram radiyallahu ta'ala an who Nabi Kareem sallallahu ta'ala sallam has mentioned that they are from Jannat. There is of course the Ashra Mubashara, those who Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam in one statement had given the glad tidings of Jannat. And then there's so many others who Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam has mentioned various things on different other occasions. The thought came to mind is that from these companions, there are some who are those who are from the Khulafa Rashideen, who we are aware of, we know of, and so we know a fair bit about their lives and what they had achieved. But there are those Sahaba Kiram radiallahu ta'ala an who may not be so well known from the Ashra Mubashara. And at the same time, who we do not know much with regards to their life. They're not so much mentioned with regards to their, for example, their Qurbani that they had made, their lifestyle or their taqwa, ibadah, these things which are not evident to us. For example, we've seen in Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu ta'ala an, he would excessively read Quran and he would excessively do zikr of Allah ta'ala, and he would cry excessively in his salat as well. And Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam mentioned that if there was anybody that all the doors of Jannat will call for, it would be Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu ta'ala an. So these are things that you get to know with regards to them. So Umar radiallahu ta'ala as well. But there are those who Nabi Kareem sallallahu ta'ala sallam has mentioned various things with regards to them. But you do not know much else about their lives. Meaning they're sort of hidden gems. And that's when thought came to myself that there must be something so unique in them that it is not just you and I who just take a chance and say, yes, this person is a wali of Allah ta'ala, this person is a very righteous and pious. Because we can easily be misguided in this. But that person who Nabi sallallahu ta'ala sallam has praised, and that person who Nabi sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wasallam has said is a Jannati. So either Nabi sallallahu has said they are from Jannat, or Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam has praised them for something, means that Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam is not going to be wrong in that. Which just shows that there is something so unique within that individual, that Nabi Kareem sallallahu ta'ala wasallam, that inside of that individual is known to Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam, that Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam has given them the glad tidings of Jannah. Whereas we don't even know, there'll be those who many won't even know the names of, the Ashra Mubashara itself. And aside from so many other Sahaba Kiram radiallahu ta'ala, maybe just names that we have heard of, but really not heard so much more with regards to what the type of things that they had done. Sayyidina Zubair radiallahu ta'ala, Sayyidina Talha radiallahu ta'ala. There's so many things mentioned with regards to their bravery and how they fought and the things that they did. So, you get an idea of some form from there. But Sayyid bin Zayd radiallahu ta'ala and some other Sahabah kiram radiallahu ta'ala, you don't get that much mention with regards to them. So the fact that Nabi sallallahu ta'ala sallam saw them, x-rayed them, and by x-raying them saw the inside, to which Nabi sallallahu ta'ala sallam has mentioned these various praises of them, and Nabi sallallahu ta'ala alayhi sallam has given them the glad tidings of Jannah, just shows that how great and how unique these individuals were. How? Which means that it may not have been that bravery that is evident to us or recorded, you can say. Not that they didn't show any, but they may not have been recorded the bravery that they showed in the battlefield, for example, or the qurbani that they had undertaken when they came into the fold of Islam or for the sake of Islam. Maybe these things may not be mentioned there, or what they may have done after the demise of Nabi sallallahu ta'ala sallam. So those things are not there, but shows that internally there is that kayfiyat within them that they had built their relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and they rectify themselves to such a high standard that Nabi Kareem sallallahu ta'ala alayhi sallam has given them the glad tidings of Jannah, or that Nabi sallallahu ta'ala sallam has praised them. When Nabi sallallahu ta'ala sallam, when the tribe had come to Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam asking to send somebody to us, and send to us somebody who is a trustworthy person, for example. A trustworthy person. The Sahaba kiram radiallahu ta'ala was sort of, looking up like maybe Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam, showing themselves, maybe Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam might point towards me or say to me or whatever. And from there Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam, for example, said that I will send Abu Ubaidah to you. And that he is what? Aminu hadil ummah. Aminun haqqa aminin. Nabi Sallallahu mentions that he is not just Amin, but he will fulfill the haqq of being Amin as well, of being trustworthy. Now, with regards to the trustworthiness of this Sahabi radiallahu ta'ala, there is no mention of the trustworthiness of this Sahabi. That this Sahabi may have done something. For example, there is Sahabi radiallahu ta'ala by the name of Khuzaymah bin Thabit al-Ansari. And Nabi Kareem sallallahu ta'ala sallam had given him the title of Zu Shahadatain. That his testimony is equal to the testimony of two people. But we know there is an incident by which Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam had mentioned that, for instance. And that is on one occasion that Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam had a deal with a dihati, with a villager, an uneducated individual. And he came to Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam and he said to him, bring evidence. Where's your proof? Where's your proof? To which this Sahabi radiallahu ta'ala, he said, I give testimony to what Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam has said. And that was sufficient. And Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam asked him, but you are not your present, how do you know what testimony you will give? He said, I know you are truthful. What else can there be more than you being truthful? So I give testimony not to that specific transaction, but I give testimony to your truthfulness. So Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, because you need two witnesses, that his evidence is equal to two. So you have something here by which Nabi that he got the title of Zu Shahadatain, for example, Khalid bin Walid Saifullah. There is reason of his valor and his bravery as well. As Nabi Kareem sallallahu mentions in Ghazwa Mu'ta, how Sayyidina Khalid bin Walid radiallahu ta'ala took the flag and Allah ta'ala gave victory under his imarat. So, and Nabi sallallahu mentioned Allah ta'ala then gave victory by means of the sword of Allah, a sword from the sword of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So you know the reason or some evidence that is there, or an incident or incidents that indicate towards their acceptance, you can say. But Abu Ubaidah radiallahu ta'ala, there is no such that I've come across. There might be somewhere, but that I've come across of an incident or so that shows just how amanatdar he was. There are so many who think that I'm amanatdar as well, and may have practically carried out some form of amanatdari as well. But there was that kayfiyat within him that Nabi sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wasallam specifically had chosen him. So in this way, Khaybar as well, on one occasion one of the forts were not being conquered. The Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam said what? That tomorrow will give the flag to that person who loves Allah and His Rasul, or who Allah and His Rasul loves. The following morning, the Sahabah kiram radiallahu ta'ala were in anticipation, waiting that who Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam would give the flag to. Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam asked someone for Sayyidina Ali radiallahu ta'ala. And Sayyidina Ali radiallahu ta'ala, he wasn't present at that time because he had an eye ailment. So Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam asked for him, and he came. He had Ramadan. He had eye infection. So when he came, Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam placed his saliva in his eye, and his eye became, well, fine, nothing had happened, as if nothing had happened to it at all. And Nabi Kareem sallallahu ta'ala wasallam had given the flag to Sayyidina Ali radiallahu ta'ala an. So these type of, there are so many such incidents where Nabi Kareem sallallahu ta'ala wasallam has mentioned. Sayyidina Ju'ayl bin Suraqa radiallahu ta'ala an, a simple, poor Sahabi Rasul sallallahu alayhi wasallam, who Nabi Kareem sallallahu ta'ala wasallam once asked the Sahaba kiram radiallahu ta'ala that a person went by, a high noble individual, and Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wasallam asked the Sahaba that what is your perception of this individual? To which they said that he is of high status. If he was to propose somewhere, they would accept his proposal. If he was to say something, people would listen to him. If he were to intercede, people would accept his intercession. So, he's a noble, lofty person. Then Ju'ayl bin Suraqa, he went past. When Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam asked the Sahaba radiallahu ta'ala an with regards to him, he said that he is from a commoner. He's from the common companions, nothing major about him, but rather it's a case of social standards, he's not there on top. That if he was to intercede, people won't really take that seriously. His proposal would probably be rejected because he's not so wealthy. So he's not from the influence individual and of high noble status. So but Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam mentioned that Ju'ayl khairum min millil ardi minhu. That Ju'ayl compared to the whole world filled of the first individual, one Ju'ayl is better than them all. He is better than them all. But we do not have any mention with regards to the lifestyle or the taqwa, the piety, or any such other matters with regards to this Sahabi Rasul sallallahu alayhi wasallam. But Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wasallam witnessed something. Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam perceived something. Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam knew of the kayfiyat and the condition of this Sahabi, of this companion by which Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam had given him such type of, or had praised him. Remember here, praise is from who? This praise is coming from Nabi Kareem sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wasallam. So these are show that these companions of Nabi Kareem sallallahu ta'ala wasallam, they were those who were chosen by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to be the companions of Nabi sallallahu ta'ala wasallam. Like we say as well, jaise ruh waise farishte. So how the people are, and that's how the angels are going to be as well. Meaning it's saying that. So Nabi Kareem sallallahu ta'ala wasallam, being Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam after all, at a standard and a level of nur in his heart, that ta'alluq with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, such a maqam of iman that nobody can reach. That Nabi sallallahu ta'ala wasallam had to have such companions as well, who of course no insan could reach the level of the iman of Nabi sallallahu ta'ala wasallam, but such people of such high level and standard of iman as well, who could be around Nabi Kareem sallallahu ta'ala wasallam, who could have that ruhani kayfiyat to be able to take from the heart of Nabi sallallahu ta'ala wasallam. And that's why we were not created during that time. Because our hearts do not have that capacity, you can say. Our hearts do not have that ability. You have a charger, for example, you have different voltage of chargers and that, so that is the capacity that it can hold, something high or something low. That is the amount that it is able to take. That is the amount of load that it can take. You have circuit breakers as well, different size circuit breakers and that. Something less, more, 32 amps for example. That is the amount of power that it is able to handle. Less than that it won't be able, if it's less than and the power is more, it's not going to be able to handle that. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam such companions whose heart's capacity, ruhani capacity was also of that level that was able to handle the ruhani capacity and power that was emitting from the heart of Nabi Kareem sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa sallam. On that same level as well. By level we mean level of being able to handle and hack, you can say, that ruhaniyat of Nabi Kareem sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa sallam. Because Nabi sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa sallam's ruhaniyat is a total different level. Total different level that was there. And now just imagine being in the company of such a ruhani individual. Company of such a ruhani individual that on the night of Mi'raj as well, then when Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam and Sayyidina Jibreel, who is after all from the angels itself, they reached the Sidratul Muntaha. From there, Sayyidina Jibreel alayhi salam said, Lord, now you go from here. Even I cannot traverse beyond this position here. We just shows the capacity of Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam to be able to go beyond that position and that stage which even Sayyidina Jibreel could not go beyond. So that is the level of Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam. And those around were those who Allah Ta'ala had to put special units there, whatever breakers or whatever it is, to be able to handle that level of the Iman of Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam. The actual full level of Iman, that never came out in such a manner. The Sahabah radiallahu ta'ala, they would just say Musa alayhi salatu salam, they would all from this faint there and their hearts would burst just being there in the company of Nabi sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wasallam. So Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam kept it at a certain level. But that level itself was one which their hearts were such that was able to comprehend it, was able to bear it as well. And not only that, that's why the Sahaba Kiram radiallahu ta'ala in the company of Nabi sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wasallam, they would not raise their heads towards Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam, their eyes towards Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam, because that ruhani, one is that awe that they had, the adab and the respect that they had, and along with that ruhani awe that was emitting there itself was so much that was there, that there was no sunglasses that they could put on, so the only way was by lowering the gazes so that they would still be able to remain in the company of Nabi Kareem sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wasallam. And then when you think of these Sahaba, then just imagine the maqam of Shaykhain, the maqam of Sayyidina Abu Bakr Siddiq and the maqam of Sayyidina Umar radiallahu ta'ala, who were the close companions of Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam, who were so often with Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam, that just imagine their ruhani kayfiyat, that they were able to be with Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam on so many occasions and so many times as well. So it's because that is the environment that you're in, and ruhani environment, that you need to have that type of heart as well to be able to take that ruhaniyat. And this is something which is a haqiqat, reality. I remember when studying in Darul Uloom Deoband, one occasion on maybe Friday or whatever day off or so, I did the trip of visiting the qabr, the mazar of some of our akabirin. And that was the dora of Nanotwa and Gango and Thanabad and Jalalabad. So that trip. And these are not so far from Deoband. So in this you go to Nanotwa, and then Nanotwa there is the qabr of Maulana Yaqub Nanotwi rahmatullah alayhi. And when a person goes, Maulana Qasim Nanotwi rahmatullah alayhi is in Mazar Qasmi as it is in Deoband, Maulana Yaqub Nanotwi rahmatullah alayhi. So there was his qabr. And then from there you go to Gango, and you go to Gango, then there is the Mazar of Shah Abdul Quddus Gangohi rahmatullah alayhi. And then there is also the Mazar of Hazrat Rashid Ahmad Gangohi rahmatullah alayhi, his khanqa, his masjid is there. And from there a person went to Thana Bhawan, and then to the Mazar of Hazrat Hakim Muhammad rahmatullah alayhi. So ye thoda sa chakkar tha, just the Mazar of these Ahlullah. And after coming back from there, अब ये तो उस ज़माने था और बस तालिब इल्मी का ज़माना, समझ में आया कि नहीं? तालिब इल्मी ज़माना, and when you're a student of deen, you You don't have any concept of ruhaniyat and these, type of things. At that time, toda futa, just whatever is talibin, but talibin is something to sunna ki. Inse thoda alag. So, talibin, not specific anybody. मैंने ऐसे किया इन तलबा की तरह से मैंने कि ये स्पेसिफिक कोई तो तालिबिन होता है लेकिन इतना है कि for few days मैं बीमार पड़ गया few days बीमार पड़ गया बीमार meaning what it seemed to a overload of ruhaniyat and such overload of ruhaniyat that the heart was not prepared for that ruhaniyat जिसकी वजह से जो है तबीयत पर असर पड़ गई and it didn't take long to understand what it is because there is a case of usually traveling is a bit different but this was easier traveling normally from Deoband you go travel by train to Delhi and back you're going to be knocked out just from that itself you do get ill and that used to happen and that is a different nature that is something different here the travel isn't that type of travel either but there was that effect and that effect was just by going to the mazar of these awliya of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that ruhaniyat that is there so just imagine from there this level of ruhaniyat of the Sahabah kiram radiyallahu ta'ala an that they were able to bear the weight of nabuwat, the weight of the nur of Nabi Kareem sallallahu ta'ala sallam and then when you look at it as well just imagine the maqam of the azwaj mutahharat as well the maqam of the azwaj mutahharat as well the azwaj mutahharat as well again we just regard them to be what maybe from the wives they were fortunate that they were the wives of Nabi sallallahu ta'ala sallam that women today would feel as well that if we were lucky then if only we could have been from the wives of Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam as well like we would feel like if only we could be from the companions of Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam but I said look the reality is which camp would we be in that of the mushrikeen of Quraysh or the munafiqeen of Ibn Ubay which camp would we be in so one needs to be able to think of that as well the taqaza at that time would we be able to fulfill we can't fulfill the haqq of our ustad or the shaykh our parents, so the haqq of a Nabi of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we wouldn't have been able to do that. And now just imagine these women after all. And the maqam of the women, ruhani wise, you would not expect them to be at the same level of that of the Sahabah kiram radiyallahu ta'ala an. As Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam mentions, قَوْلَ كَثِيرٌ مِنَ الرِّجَالِ Many from the men have reached a very high status with regards to their inner self. And from this ummah, Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam mentions from the women, Sayyidina Asiya and Sayyidina Maryam, are those who've reached such a great maqam. And then Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam mentions, but the fazilat of Sayyidina Aisha radiallahu ta'ala over other women is like the fazilat of thareed over other food. This is a delicacy at that time, this thareed, wherein they would be, you'd have your salan you can say, and then you have your roti which is broken up and mixed with that with some other good nice things with it as well. Good food for example. So Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam mentioned this is the position and fazilat of Aisha radiallahu ta'ala anha. Now remember Sayyidina Aisha radiallahu ta'ala anha and the rest of the azwaj mutahharat, there must be something in them that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala chose them to be the azwaj mutahharat. For them to be able to even remain as wives and as ummatis of Nabi sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wasallam. And this is very difficult, but rather more difficult than anything else. Because they were wives after all. There were domestic issues as well, and this is documented as well. So there were domestic issues there as well, but those domestic issues never reached that position wherein they had now, you can show some disrespect to a Nabi of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And just imagine to maintain that is so difficult. A wife who is a wife of a Shaykh, a tariqat for example, an Arif Billah and a great wali of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala who has so many murids throughout the world, the last person who will take him to be a Shaykh and be is going to be his wife. She'll be the last one. Like the one complaining about, he says, but today aisa hai, waisa hai. And I said, no, today I saw Wali Allah Ta'ala. I saw him, this one guy, he was flying in the air. He was flying in the air. This is what you call a Wali Allah Ta'ala. So he said, where did you see flying over Azda? How were you? Flying Azda. What time? 12 o'clock? Yes. Oh, मैं ही था. So इसलिए तो 13 चल रहा था. That's why he was flying crooked. So she said, what? That's why he was going crooked. So in one sentence she's praising and then she's insulting as well. Imagine here it Azwaj Mutaharat as well. Sayyidina Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said to Sayyidina Aisha radiallahu ta'ala anha, ये पूरा उन्वान बयान जो है मकसद नहीं था, मुझे ज़िल हिज्जा की बात करनी चाहिए थे. First then of those days Allah Ta'ala has chosen. तो वजह होगी भाई साहबा किराम रज़ियल्लाहु ताला का तज़किरा. और उसकी वजह क्या है? उसकी वजह भी ये है. मैं दोहरा तलवा को कहता हूँ कि दिस दोहरा हदीस साल एक अजीब साल होता है if you understand it or not. और अब तो इतनी हदीसें रोज़ाना बुखारी शरीफ ख़त्म करनी. इस साल बुखारी जलसा is a bit early as well. 13 तारीख 13th of July. So all those Satya as well, mark that down, will be needed as well for the 13th of July. सब बच्चे लोग सब नोट कर लो उसको. तो हंगामी थोड़ा दौड़-भाग होता है कि नहीं. तो इसमें हदीस पर हदीस आते हैं. तो चलते फिरते सोने सब नींद में ख्वाबों में यही सब नज़र आते हैं. यही सब चलते रहे सलमा की नहीं. और गोया कि एक दुनिया उन लोगों के साथ बसी हुई है सलमा की नहीं, और एक दुनिया आप लोगों के साथ बसी है. एक जो है गोया कि इनके साथ बसी हुई ज़िंदगी होती है. शायद इस वजह से ये निकल आया हो. तो खैर क्या बात थी. Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam mentioned with regard to Sayyidina Aisha radiallahu ta'ala anha that I know exactly when you are not happy with me. Now this not being happy, no other Sahabi is going to have that with Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. This is just going to be in the household. So in the household where there is something wherein, the husband and wife were maybe not so happy with one another. So Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam mentions, I know when you are not pleased with me. He says, how? That when you are pleased with me, you say, Wallahi bi Rabbi Muhammad. You take my name. And you take an oath on the name of Rabbi Muhammad. And when you're not pleased, then you say what? Rabbi Ibrahim. You take the name of Ibrahim instead of me. So Aisha radiallahu ta'ala said, yes, that's right. But then what does she say? But oh Rabbi Allah, it is only your name that I leave out. It is only your name that I leave out. It just shows the level of their love for Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam as well. That they don't lead that to where the dislike is in the heart as well, like would happen. That it is, yes, I'm not happy at this moment with the circumstances, so she expresses that as well by not taking the name of Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, but there is no dislike for Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam in the heart, because now that becomes a matter of an ummati with the Prophet. If that dislike comes about, then the iman is on the fence. Who would be able to control that? Who would be able to have that level? Who would be able to have that level of iman as well to be able to balance that out? So it just shows that from all the women, and Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam had divorced a number of women as well. Some Nabi Sallallahu on the spot as well. Nikah took place and divorce took place as well. Why? Because they were not capable of that. They would not have been able to carry it out and remain as these the Azwaj Mutaharat. Each one of them were of that level to be able to have maintained that is the waji relationship you have, the marital relationship that is there, the domestic life that is there, as well as that being that of a ummati. And of course, there is that takallufi between husband and wife. That relationship is totally different to any other relationship that you'd have. That is the most different and unique relationship that is there. The most, you can say, open relationship, one without boundaries, you can say. One without boundaries. But Azwaj Mutaharat still in that maintained the boundaries of being a follower and ummati of Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. And that is truly unique. And Nabi Kareem Sallallahu Ta'ala Wasallam, when he praises Sayyidina Aisha radiallahu ta'ala anha by saying, there is no other woman in whose laps I am in when Wahi is revealed upon me, it shows the level of the iman of Sayyidina Aisha radiallahu ta'ala anha, who was still so very young at that time. So just imagine what the maqam of Sayyidina Aisha radiallahu ta'ala anha was for Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam to have just the way Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam could see the Sahabah radiallahu ta'ala and praise them. The Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam saw there is something in Sayyidina Aisha radiallahu ta'ala. Not that, Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam did not choose Sayyidina Aisha. Allah Ta'ala had chosen Sayyidina Aisha. Ye bhi yaad rakhe. Again, Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said, what? I saw you in a dream twice, where I was shown you, and there was somebody carrying you in a carriage or a parda of green. And when I opened the hijab, and then I saw you there. And then I just made dua to Allah Ta'ala, said, if this is going to happen, it will happen. If it is to happen, it will happen. And this was seen in a dream to Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. So, Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam did not choose Sayyidina Aisha himself. Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala had chosen Sayyidina Aisha for Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. So there is a reason behind that. And such a great section of our ilm has come to us by means of Sayyidina Aisha radiallahu ta'ala anha. And that's why she was young as well. Young so that she was fresh mentally as well. To be able to notice these things, intelligent and sharp as well. To be able to understand these things, record these things, remember these things, and be able to relate these things as well. And the others, Azwaji Mutahara, there were those who also do as well, but maybe not all of them. They were of benefit, and they were the various hikmahs and reasons as well. Why Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam married the various Azwaji Mutaharat as well. There's details of each one you can go into. What was the hikmah behind Nabi Sallallahu marriage to them. And but you say Aisha radiallahu ta'ala anha, you can fully understand the work that Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala had taken from her. She was only 18 when Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam passed away. But she lived her entire life after that as well. And what did she do? She was what? The mother of the ummah. So, and the ummah then benefited so much from Sayyidina Aisha radiallahu ta'ala anha. There are so many occasions the Sahabah radiallahu ta'ala would come to Sayyidina Aisha or send somebody to Sayyidina Aisha and ask and inquire with regard. So many masail have been unraveled by means of Sayyidina Aisha radiallahu ta'ala anha. And if Sayyidina Aisha radiallahu ta'ala anha was one who was a bit bully, bali, gabli or so, kind of something not so intelligent and that, then the ummah would be a bit stumped there as well. Will be stumped with so many matters as well. But Sayyidina Aisha radiallahu ta'ala an was intelligent, very intelligent. And she noticed these things, and she did what? She remembered and recollected all of these things as well. And that's why the hadiths are full with regards to Sayyidina Aisha radiallahu ta'ala. There's so many masail, as I mentioned, not just the hadith and that, but so many masail have been unraveled as well by means of Sayyidina Aisha radiallahu ta'ala. So my dear friends, it's very easy for us to feel and wish that if only we were around during the time of Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, but it's not just as a simple thing as that. These were those people who, this is the caliber, this is the maqam of the iman that Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala had given the Sahaba Kiram radiallahu ta'ala an. Khair, my dear friends, just to wrap up, what I was mentioning is how Allah Ta'ala has chosen various individuals. Allah Ta'ala has created and chosen. Allah Ta'ala has created time as well. From time, Allah Ta'ala has chosen various different occasions. Allah Ta'ala has made certain months, the Ashurul Hurum, the sacred months. And from those sacred months, those which are collective together are these Zulqa'dah, Zulhijjah and Muharram. And from these 3 months together, the months of Hajj which these are, Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala from them has chosen these, which we are already into already from Friday or Saturday, which are the first 10 days of the month of Dhul Hijjah, wherein Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam mentions there is no amal that a person does which is more beloved to Allah Ta'ala than that which he does during these days. And the Sahabah mentioned as well, even jihad, even jihad. Aside for that person who goes and becomes shaheed, loses everything, this, whatever you do now in these days is more beloved to Allah Ta'ala than jihad fi sabilillah as well. It just shows the auspiciousness of these days. And this is the only season, the only occasion wherein so many different ibadat are collective together, have been gathered together in one period of time. This is this period of time. These days, the fasting these days, and then you have the Qurbani as well, you have the Hajj as well, the Takbir Tashriq as well. All of these things Allah Ta'ala has accumulated, and then you have the days of Hajj, and from the days of Hajj you have what? The king of the days of Hajj, the day of Arafah as well. For the Hajjis is a great day there, And for the non-Hajis, it's also an occasion wherein you do what? You fast on that occasion. You fast on the 10th of Ashura, 1 year's sin is forgiven. Fast on the day of Arafah, the past and the next future year. 2 years' sins are forgiven. 2 years' sins are forgiven. The previous year's sins, minor sins are forgiven. And the coming year's sins are also forgiven by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So just shows the greatness of the day of Arafat as well. And the day of Arafat as well, masla-wise, is according to each country's calendar as well. Wherever you are, whatever your 9th of Dhul Hijjah is, that is the day of Arafah. And it doesn't need to correspond with the actual day of Arafah, meaning those who are in Arafat. Because for them it's the day of Arafah because they're in Arafat. But for the rest of the world it is what? Because the fasting which Nabi mentioned as well of the day of Arafah, the people in Arafat do not fast on that day. So that is for who? That is those who are not there. And for those who are not there, that equals the 9th of Dhul Hijjah. And nowhere is there that everywhere in the world their dates during these days have to correspond with the days of Hajj and the days of Hajj either, that whenever the day of Arafat is, the next day has to be Hajj. That is of course. But that doesn't mean everywhere else in the world either. So wherever our 9th of Dhul Hijjah is, and of course the next day 10th is going to be Eid anyway. So these days, and these are we are already into, and not long before we'll be passing these days. So we should also realize the value of these days and try and increase in the ibadat. Continue doing the ibadat of Allah Ta'ala is normal. Abstain from disobedience of Allah Ta'ala and do whatever extra a person can do during these days to draw that extra closeness with Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala. Allah Ta'ala grant us all the understanding and tawfiq. And Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala grant us all immense love of the companions of Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Love them, you love Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. And dislike them, then you dislike Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. So very important that we have love for the Sahabah Kiram radiallahu ta'ala. And one thing as well with regards to the Sahabah, remember they were not angels, they were human beings. They were human beings. And just like us, they had their different ways as well. They are insan after all, and insan is not an angel. So there is going to be, if you are going to start looking for faults, there is no human being that is free from any fault. The Sahaba Kiram radiallahu ta'ala were the same. So one is you do what? You start studying the lives of the Sahaba with that motive of finding their faults. And if you're going to do that, you'll find many faults there. You will find, because they were human beings after all. And the other is that you do what? You study them to look at their goodness that is there. And if you do that, then you'll be able to overlook the faults that are there. And if you have love for them, you'll be able to overlook the faults of the Sahaba radiallahu ta'ala, because they are those who Allah Ta'ala has said radiallahu anhu wa radu an. They are those who Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has forgiven as well. During the time of the Sahaba radiallahu ta'ala, Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam mentioned, Hadim ibn Balta radiallahu ta'ala, Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said what? He's from Badr, and the Badr are those who Allah Ta'ala has forgiven. So these are those who Allah Ta'ala has forgiven. They are those who Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala were pleased with. Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam was pleased with. Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, they were chosen to be the companions of Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. That is sufficient for us. The rest, whatever went on amongst them, that's during their time, that's between them and whatever, and then between them and Allah Ta'ala. That has nothing to do with us, for us to start judging them and to be critical with regards to the Sahaba. And why I say this as well is because when there wasn't this YouTube and social media, people would not even come across any of these incidents, any of these differences of the Sahaba. The general masses would not have a clue, would not even come to know of these things whatsoever at all. You'll find them, they're there anyway. But now with social media, especially when you have those who are haters of the Sahaba Kiram radiallahu ta'ala an, it is there. And there'll be those who might hear these things and what's happening here? Why not this Sahabi? And then what's going to happen? You're going to start doing what? You're going to start looking down at the Sahaba Kiram radiallahu ta'ala, and that is going to be detrimental to, and Nabi mentions, whoever swears or speaks ill of my Sahabi is doomed. He has wronged, and he has sworn me, for example. So a person needs to abstain from that. Very, very important. Not to harbor any dislike for the Sahaba Kiram radiallahu ta'ala an. Now, because there is access to these things, best is just don't even listen to these things. Don't even entertain it. Or if within something, maybe something comes about and it is mentioned, then okay, we don't understand it, we don't know much about it, we do not know the whole background about it, so we're not the judge about it. That is the attitude we should have. Allah Ta'ala gives all the understanding. ربنا تقبل هو ربنا تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم وتب علينا إنك أنت التواب الرحيم سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين.